Hey, Dev.
Nope.
Who's sponsoring this episode?
Colossal.
I think it's colossally crazy that I didn't know that.
I think it's a colossal failure on your end.
Colossal.
Anyway, this episode is supported by Colossal, a brand new way to discover beats online. Colossal lets artists gain exclusive access to beats from top industry producers. These are beats that are usually only reserved for major artists, and they're partnering with new producers every day. We're excited to share that Colossal is now in beta, so if you're an artist looking for beats, check it out now. And if you're a producer and want to get on the platform and sell more beats, register now at colossal.fm/producers. And it's free, no subscription costs. The app has a killer feature called Vibes, which is a totally new take on beat discovery. Just describe the kind of beats you're looking for, and Vibes gives you a personalized feed to scroll through, just like TikTok. Visit colossal.fm right now to get started. Clap it up. Thank you so much. We had to stop that because I felt like you was about to pod and was about to throw everything off.
Oh, absolutely. I was about to pod?
Yes. What was you about to say, though?
Hey, man, I was about to say, how was your day?
Well, my day's been pretty good. You know, it's been pretty good. I'm like drink a Red Bull. Usually when I drink a Red Bull, everything's firing at one time. So it's like,
You just drank a Red Bull?
Yeah, I did.
It's like Coke for audio engineers.
It kind of, that's not a good way to start this. I don't like where you're going.
And no sponsors.
And no sponsors.
Please remember to like, subscribe, share, comment. And if one of these comments are getting a free copy of the Rosetta EQ or compressor, so just leave a nice one, leave your @ name in the comment. Also, become a member. It really supports us and lets us do cool shit like this. On top of the perks, you get early access. For example, the episodes. Whoa. The members been got this episode. This is why I don't do the intro much, but I'm trying.
That's right.
You get free money in the store. You get merchandise. You get every week live streams. You get cool shit. And you get a nice little sticker next to your comment.
Right. You know what's funny?
This is why I bangs with him. Like, it's like a quiet storm kind of like lead in whenever LJ does it. And I'm just like...
Know?
So you saying I don't do it well?
Nah, you come off like... I think you made a Bob Barker comment on a previous episode. I think that's more you.
Hey,
I do it because it's very announcing.
You don't got to lie. You don't do it well.
Oh, I don't do it well?
Nah.
I'll smoke you right now. You want to see LJ?
I'm kidding.
Before I guess what I'm doing in front of this guy?
But my name is
You don't want me
LJ.
to smoke you. Anyway.
My name is LJ. I'm an FL Studio user. And to the front of me...
I'm Devvon Terrell. I'm a protools user and the originator of the intro.
And the originator of the intro.
Yo,
He said
I will do
credits.
this intro right now and smoke.
He said
show the
to the
world.
left of you.
He said
Right
credits.
me?
It's Courtney T of Ableton. 12.
Awesome. And I will say one thing, shout out to
Mixed by
engineers and the good people over there as far as Mixed by Ali and the team for allowing us to use the space. We're right now at the Engineers HQ. I'll leave a link in the description for the platform and things of that nature. But again, shout out to engineers and Mixed by Ali for giving us the opportunity to use the space, talk to some friends and some legends.
Absolutely.
As well.
Speaking of friends, so the guest we have here for today, I got one of the, I guess, greatest calls of my life to go work in Vegas with an artist that is an absolute hero to me. And in getting that session, I haven't been that nervous for a session in a long time.
Right.
But when I got there, it was just family. It was my dog Camper. It was my manager. And the only other person in the room is this guy we have with us today. And he is one of the best interactions with a tracking engineer I've had in a long time.
Yeah.
With somebody I just didn't know. It was just first time working with him.
He called me, dog, like it was like no cap, and I couldn't do it. I was like, oh, he said this. Like we talked about your conversation.
I remember it was, and it's crazy because I hate recording my vocals if the vocals aren't there. So the first day there was like this whole, we'll tell that story. But my dog, 96 Nick or just Nick?
Well, I'm Nick, but on Instagram it's 96 Nick.
So my dog Nick is in the building from the Hideout LV. Make some noise for Nick.
Hey. I'm super excited, man, because like we have he told me some things and I just was like so interested in picking your brain about it. But I'll start them off.
Yeah.
What we like to ask everybody that first comes on, we just always say, what was your DAW journey? So what was like the first DAW you started in, and then what is the DAW that you are in now?
So I started originally on Machine, actually. Made beats on Machine, then started working at a studio, and they said if you're going to work in a studio, you need to know Pro Tools. So I learned Pro Tools. I was making beats in Pro Tools, and it was mad frustrating.
Right.
But I learned all the key commands. And then I went to Ableton because it's similar in layout, you know?
Yeah.
And then I'm on FL Studio for production, Pro Tools for mixing.
Wow,
Yes,
that's
sir.
crazy. I didn't know that. I feel like you hid that from me. You said I ain't gonna tell him about the FL Studio Connect.
FL gang, come on, we are in the
All
building.
right, cool.
I'm
Yeah.
a big if you're producing, I'm a big advocate for FL. Not
Yeah?
gonna lie. But production or for mixing and engineering recording, I love Pro
Tools.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I respect that. I always respect that like balance of like those two. Like I'm a
Yeah.
Pro Tools guy wholeheartedly, so I'm like producing in it like a psychopath. But I do understand.
Hey, but
like that.
you know, Pro Tools is dope too for if you can.
It's,
You know,
they're trying to get
You don't have
there.
to lie to him,
yeah,
Nick.
yeah.
It's cool. Right now. I'm kidding. But yeah, so that little story I told in the intro, it was funny. We got in the studio, right? First thing I always do in every session is I go greet the engineer. You know what I mean? I'm just like getting the feel of the spot. We're having a convo, and then we start recording. And I remember there was this thing with the speakers. Thankfully, it got fixed. But I was like, "What's going on with them? Yo, I need more highs in my voice, more highs, more highs." He was like, "Bro, trust me, like it's the sound, but I'll do it for you." And he got it done. And that's a dope thing because another reason I don't even want to go inside the tracking engineer hate or whatever. But it was just such a dope that moment where he was like, "Yo, it's something with the speakers, but I will still do it, but I'm just letting you know." And I was just like, "Man, nah, I just need more. I can't listen to it." And then I grabbed the bounce back, and it was like, "Fuck, the highs
Were insane.
And
Gotcha.
then that's when we just got into a whole gear talk. And I remember it was time to cut vocals, and it was a whole like we had the main A room where I was recording, and we had turned the booth into another basically mini studio to cut vocals.
Right.
And it was a C800 into a distressor into an Apollo, and I was like,
And
whoa.
the phone call came, and I
Yes,
said,
and I called. I was like,
"What?"
"Bro, that shit is just the coolest shit ever." So
Right.
that's what started our just audio nerd talk. Because I wasn't there to be an audio nerd, but man, we were nerding out.
yeah, C800 to 1073 distressor line into the Apollo.
Talk to me about how
Gotcha.
that happened, because you told me an amazing story with it.
Yeah.
Just how you just picked up that distressor.
It got that like
Yeah.
that whole chain. To be honest, like,
don't
the
know.
Well,
head
that's
got
not
to-
that's not my go-to chain. You know what I mean? Like I would prefer a tube tech.
Yeah.
Got you.
But like situationally, it's like I've been put in situations where, you know, working in studios, it's like this is honestly the best way to talk about it. Is I had a session. It was a really big session for me. It was an artist from the Bay Area and someone that I looked up to from the beginning.
Right.
And I finally got a session with him. He's coming in. I'm an hour early. You know, that's like an hour is like a good amount of time to be early. If
Sure.
you know, to get set up. Like 30 minutes minimum, but an hour is cool.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I'm an hour early, ready to go, and every single thing, the vocal chain, headphones, and the inputs in Pro Tools were all whack.
Right.
So it was like there was issues top to bottom. So thankfully I was there early.
Right.
And the tube tech it just broke. Sometimes stuff just breaks.
Sure.
Wow.
Sure.
You know, so I'm like, I can't believe this is happening to me right now. But then it's like, there's no time to, you know,
Oh,
the
yeah.
next thing I troubleshoot is like, cause I went from the preamp, it wasn't the preamp, it wasn't the microphone, it wasn't
Right.
the cables, it wasn't the connection.
Yeah.
It was literally, it wasn't the
tube
patch, it was the tube tech.
Right.
And I wasn't getting output from the tube tech. So I was like, all right, distressor, did it. And he had no idea, you know what I mean? It was like,
Right.
it made no difference.
Right.
And that wasn't my first time using the distressor in the vocal chain, but like, it was an instance where it was that chain that you're talking about.
Yeah.
It was C800 1073 to the distressor.
Right.
And it was like, you know, this is like, it was cool. It was different. There's a different like flavor to it, but it's
Right.
like, it's still, yeah, it did the job, and it was like,
It was really cool.
it's an extra possibility, you know?
Yeah,
Absolutely,
right. Why, for context, you know, when he was explaining it, we were talking about the distressor, because the distressor has had a reputation in some circles of, you know, there's a school of thought with some engineers that just don't like the distressor on vocals and things of that nature, right?
Yeah.
But then when he told me that you used it, and then
it sounded amazing.
and
That's
it
what
sounded, he
blew
was
me.
raving about it. So that's why, even for context, that's why we brought it up in the first place. And then we happened to be talking to Guru.
Yes.
Like literally maybe a week before, like
Yeah.
you brought that up. And Guru was raving about it in a certain way. And so that's when I was like, all right, what's going on? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So with the distressor, right? Being that you, in that moment, it was between the two tech and the distressor. He was like, let me go distressor. What did you notice from, like, sonically about the difference between those two?
That's a good question. I think, like, honestly, what I did is I just copied my settings that were on the tube tech and I dialed it in the exact same way.
Right.
And started from there. And it's just like, you know, making minor tweaks. The thing that's cool about the distressor is you can dial that thing in like a safe.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, it's literally,
Yeah,
has
like,
that
it's
little,
literally like,
That knobs do look like a safe. Like, yeah.
Right.
You're right.
So
right,
it's
right,
like, you know, kind of like coming up with the perfect combination. It's like, it's
Wow.
very precise.
Right.
You know, and it's like, and it's clean. It's not like it's crazy. You can overdrive it and go crazy with
Right.
it. But if you just do it, you know, kind of
Tastefully.
just you know, just barely tap it, and then like that gain, you know, is very clean gain. So it's like similar to the Tube Tech. The Tube Tech has a very clean gain, like,
Right.
you know, straight out. So
Right.
that's sort of like, you know, filling that role.
Right.
Yeah.
In the entire chain. And what was your chain, like, what was your, for instance, like some go-to settings on the Tube Tech that you was using for the most part?
Man, I'll have to look at it. It's just kind of like
You just know. Like, it's like,
you know,
like, got you.
yeah.
Ratio-wise, what would you say, like,
probably like 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 maybe at the most.
okay,
Yeah.
gotcha, and go from there. Okay.
What are some of your favorite pieces, I guess, just to track in with?
Yeah.
At all, but besides the CL1B, I could tell that you really, really rock with it. But
Yeah.
are there any other outboard compressors or just plugins, I guess, that you always end up going to?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I love the BAE 1073s, preamps, Tube Tech, Distressor's cool, LA2A's cool sometimes. Like microphones, I love the C800. 251's cool, U48, like U87, you know, like
the usual stuff.
yeah. So those are, you know,
Like your go-to
Yeah.
tools. Like
those are
those
the tools of the trade.
Yeah. Those are like really like what you call it. What would you say? You know, for instance, what would be your go-to as far as like, okay, I'm recording an R&B vocal today. Like, what would be your go-to?
I was literally about to ask, is it like from genre to genre, sound to sound, is it like set and forget, kind of just like you have these pieces and you're just using them differently in every song, or do you just like literally like, oh, maybe this one I might want to go for the Distressor as opposed to the Tube Tech, et cetera, et cetera.
like a natural instinct, like rap.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, it's really situational. It's like it's cool you bring this up because like one thing that's important to me is to prepare ahead of time. Like I listen to whoever if it's a new client, like I'll listen to their music on the way to the studio. That's super important off top. Yeah. And you know, I can kind of tell it's like, oh, their voice would be really cool with, you know, certain microphones, or like maybe a C800 might be too much for them. Like maybe like a 251, like a little, you know, a little bit less.
Yeah. Right.
And you know, it's like always like, you know, U87's always safe. You know, and it's like C800 always sounds great too, you know.
Absolutely.
Honestly,
you
like,
know,
you can't beat that
most
sound.
common thing I hear is people like, yo, you just can't mess that up. Like, you know what I mean? Just like, it's gonna be fine, right?
You know, unless someone really requests a different mic, you know what I mean? It's like those are kind of the
palette of sounds for
yeah,
vocals
exactly.
and stuff. Right.
So I wonder, I guess bringing it back just a little bit, how did you find yourself tracking? I know you said you started as a producer, but what took you from there to really just recording vocals? Or mixing. What was your journey from starting off as a producer into finding
And
yourself
then landing yourself in tracking.
Right,
Obviously, it was a legendary session he was telling me about. So it's like, you know, it's like interesting to like know, how did you get to that like spot?
Well, when I started as an intern in the studio my first day, I didn't know what an engineer was.
Wow.
Like real, like I just wanted to work in a studio. It was like I just followed my intuition to like I want to make music, you know what I mean? And I found a studio, and it was just, you know, I kept coming back until they gave me a job. Like,
I felt that.
That's all right. Okay,
yeah,
got you.
So I started November 4th, 2016 at Different Fur recording studio in San Francisco. And, you know, from there it was like I was an intern. I was opening the doors, you know, setting up, going on food runs, you know, that type of stuff. And over time, through being there, you know, the engineers started to,
take a liking to you and stuff like that.
Help me out, teach me things. Like,
right.
You know, one of the first things that before I got a job, they said, you know, what do you know? I didn't know what an EQ was. I didn't know what a compressor was.
Wow, he's green,
I didn't know
like,
microphones, like nothing. And he goes, okay, this is the owner. He said, go on our website and memorize every microphone that we have.
Wow.
So I went home, memorized them all, came back a week later, and it was like, these are your microphones.
Right.
And he's just like, okay.
And
he's like, you know, and it's like also included in that was like, what are the different types of microphones?
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't know there was, you know, it was like all that. So it's like really that was I didn't go to school, but that was my school.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. So you're one of the people that really learned by, just hands-on experience.
Yeah.
Wow, that's such a rare occurrence these days. Like, I feel like a lot of people, I guess, in our age group have gotten some type of like slightly formal education or in things of that nature. But the greatest engineers of all time came out of just the intern shit. So my question for you is, in your internship or just in just that stage, like what were like some things that you felt like you like how was that learning process? Because it's like, bro, you came in green, like not knowing anything. What was that learning process like?
I mean, it was like I felt like I had everything possibly about everything to learn. So it was like,
right,
you know what I mean? Like it was cool because I got to create my own curriculum. Like I was the kind of student that it's like, if you told me what I had to learn, it was kind of like I got frustrated by that. But it's like I was like, I love this, and I get to learn whatever I want to from people that are doing this shit.
Right.
You know, and it's like that was really cool. So shout out to like all the people along the way that really took me under their wing and helped me out with that.
Right.
Absolutely.
Did they have a console and stuff like that at the particular studio?
Yeah, they had a SSL 4000E.
Got an e-console. And so my question to you is, I was like being so green, like, to everything. What was that console like as far as learning a console and stuff like that?
At first it was so overwhelming.
It's daunting. Yes. Very overwhelming when you first look at it.
It's crazy. It's like even just getting signal out of it, like understanding like how do you even make your iPod play?
Yeah. Right.
Like
signal
how do
flow.
you, all that. Like how do you get the computer to play? Like if you're playing YouTube versus Pro Tools, like there's a difference. Like why?
Right.
Like those types of things was like, it was just like, it would break my brain every single day. I would just stare at it like, what is going on?
I know. Hey, let me show you something real quick. Engineers is the premier online platform for music collaboration, connecting audio engineers and artists for professional mixing and mastering. Engineers' goal is to support artists and engineers in their marketing efforts as well. And through their new partnership with Symphony OS, you can now easily promote your music or engineering services through simple 2-click campaigns. Choose an asset. Set your ad details. Then you're up and running. Check out Engineers today. I'll leave a link in the description below. What you mean? Yeah. Full sell, guys.
Absolutely.
So I remember we had class and stuff like that, and we would have like our final. And one of our finals for our console class was like get signal going, put a reverb up and everything, and that was it. And I remember like studying for that and trying to understand signal flow. So one thing for you I want to ask is, obviously you're interning at the studio, you're learning, you're getting your teeth. And what was like a first big session for you, like as kind of like the intern assistant that you kind of like in the room, like, yo, I'm in the room at the very least. Like, I don't know like much, but I'm in the room. Like, what was like that first session?
I don't know which one came first, but it was so I was at that studio for a couple months, and then one of the engineers said, hey, I'm gonna go start another studio. I'd like for you to come and be my assistant.
Oh wow, gotcha.
So that was like, I got a little bit more hands-on. I was, rather than being at the desk, I was actually in the room.
Right.
And then he, started teaching me gain staging and signal flow and like at a deeper level and patching. And then it got to the point where I would dial in the vocals.
Right.
Right. And then, so it was at that studio, and it was either Lil Baby or Lil Boozy came in.
That's wild.
Oh, wow. And I was like, wow, this is crazy.
I'm here. Right, I'm here.
I was still, assistant, runner, whatever, but like, sit in the corner, be quiet, and just like, but it was like, that was also like right when Lil Baby was kind of coming up, like, like the
right.
Started really
Too hard, all that other stuff was like on its way. Right.
Yeah. So those two sessions were really cool.
Right, to be in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I guess just kind of going through it since we're here and stuff like that. Obviously, runner, assistant kind of thing. What was the moment that you feel like you've kind of ascended to like engineer?
Yeah, I was literally about to follow up.
Yeah, like just
straight
like
that.
engineer.
I mean, I still do assistant roles.
Okay,
that's like that's just kind of like the role that I have at my studio still. Like we get all types of people come in, and I'll be put on as assistant, but I also get my fair share of engineering opportunities too.
Right.
Yeah, like I think I've been engineering for 8 years now.
Right.
I think probably like 5 or 6 years into it was like, you know, I really
feeling solid and confident.
Yeah, I felt like it was like my work had kind of started to pay off, and I was starting to get like my own clients. Maybe 4 years, like, you know, my own clients and you know, a mixture, and it was, you know, kind of getting it going like that. You know?
Right. What would you say, you know, as far as your first time, it's like, okay, I'm in charge. Like, you know, obviously this is, you know, still fresh and stuff.
All right.
But nonetheless,
How
like,
did you handle that too?
Yeah,
Man.
and who was the artist? Like, you was like, all right, I'm in charge of this section. Like, here we go. Like, all the things you learned.
Man, I don't even remember who the client was, but I feel like it was definitely like there was along the way there was always moments where like it was. You get that sweat on the back of your neck because you're like, this is something I should know how to do. And like everyone's watching you and you're just like, ooh, you're in the hot seat, man.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you got to go through those moments to like to learn from those things, you know, along the way. And so it was definitely like that second studio I worked at in San Francisco is where I got a lot of those types of
feelings and stuff.
Yeah,
and like I'm in the hot seat, like, and I'm in charge, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And it's like, you know, a big thing too is like knowing how to do exactly what the client wants you to do as quick as possible.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And so it's just like you just have to go through the experience of that. Like that's just like there's no other way to learn that. You know?
Straight up.
So.
Absolutely. So I would love to know, because it's funny, I didn't, for some reason, didn't know that there were a bunch of like, or any big studios in Vegas. I feel like a lot of people say that. But how did you find yourself at Hideout?
Man, so my family moved to Vegas. I was still in the Bay Area. And every time I would come to visit my family, you know, my parents were always like, oh, you should move out here, all that stuff. And I was like, anti-Vegas.
He was like, nah, I'm not doing that. Right.
And, you know, every time I would go visit my family, I would secretly go tour a different studio. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was
kind of
like,
let me check out. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like kind of recon.
Exactly. But it was like secret though, because they, you know, otherwise my mom would, you know, I didn't want her to know that I was like considering it. You know?
Right. He was like, nah, I want to come.
Right.
Look around.
But let me see what's up. Right. And you know, it was a couple trips, and I just kept finding studios that were equal to the studio that I was working at.
Right. Yeah.
But the difference was I didn't have any clients out there.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like I had a client base, like I was building a reputation in the Bay Area, and I was like starting to, you know, make things happen.
Right.
And finally I came across a studio, and I was like, you know what? Like I can move out here for this.
And build in this place.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was a newer studio, and they had a SSL 4000G.
Okay, classic.
And I was like, you know what? Like, I know I've been engineering, but like I'm willing to move here and sit down for like, you know, a year or two and learn at a higher level.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Understood. Okay, gotcha. Really like just work on your craft.
Knowing that I was capable of running sessions and stuff and making it happen, but also like with the understanding that like there's a higher level to this, and I'm willing to
invest.
Yeah, you know, invest my time at least.
Right.
So yeah.
And when you talk about that investment, would you say it was more on the recording side, tracking, or like more on the mixing side? Like, what was your decision in your head? It's like just in general,
just a higher level of music creation. You know.
Gotcha. Okay.
I was working with a lot of rappers in the Bay Area, and that was pretty much it. It was one vocal, and like that was it.
Right.
And, you know, obviously I know there's like more to creating music than just that. You know, it's like all of it, you know, bands, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, just getting the knowledge on that, all that stuff. That's crazy.
I never used a console as an engineer.
Gotcha.
You know? So
until that time.
It was like learning how to use a console. Like I could just see that was an important, you know, next step.
Yeah. And there's something, to be honest, there's something about like as an engineer, like when I'm seeing the board lit up, you know, and just like I'm using multiple faders, not just one. Like something in my heart like just lights up, you know what I mean? So I definitely understand that. What you saying?
So let's fast forward a little bit, and something that we very, very briefly in passing spoke about, that I would love for you to just tell the story on, was I know you assisted a bit on the last Super Bowl because they worked a lot of it out of Vegas.
Yes.
So how was that experience? How early did they bring you in? And I'm sure they changed a lot over time, and it was a big process. But just tell us that.
Yeah. So that production came through my studio, and I was fortunate enough to get the phone call from the studio manager, and you know, she's one of those people that when she presents an opportunity, she gives you minimal information, but it's always yes. It's gotta be, because it's like, especially when it's like 5+ days, more than 5 days, it's like you gotta you know what I mean?
Yeah, bro. You just know,
At this point, I'm just like, all right, she's not gonna tell you who it is, because if you say no, then it's like,
okay,
right.
But
it's like I've developed that relationship with her over time of like, I just know to say yes, right, and then she'll let you know, and then it's like, dope.
Nice. Glad I didn't say no. For sure.
So, I got that phone call, and we started on October 31st of almost pretty much a year ago at this point. And that was the load-in day. And I was initially booked as the assistant.
Okay.
Right? So it's like, cool. Like, I know what to do.
Right, superbowl.
Well, the engineer for it was actually the live engineer.
Right.
For Usher's live, for the residencies and all that stuff.
Yes.
So he shows up the first day.
Right.
I meet him. It's like, I'll be your right-hand man, like, whatever you need.
Right.
And he's like, all right, cool, man, And then the next day he didn't come.
Oh,
because he's doing the residency. He's doing all kinds of, it's like preparing for the Super Bowl, like, all that stuff. And so then I'm, all of a sudden, like, I'm in the chair. And it's like, I'm kind of the, like,
the go-to guy.
The focal point of, like, from what they want to hear to hearing it, and, how they want to hear it, and, all that stuff. So that was, like, getting thrown into that was like,
different
at a high level, man.
Right.
So what was it like? Like, what is that environment like? Like being in the moment, and like, are you like, do you have like key points, or is it Pro Tools? Is it like to know moments? Like
you were working alongside Lil Jon and the Avila Brothers, correct?
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Guys, shout out to them. They fucking produced the hell out of that.
Yeah.
That was that was insane, bro. I was in my living room screaming, bro.
Bro,
I was like, y'all don't know, y'all don't understand.
Yeah, because we were R&B guys. It was so important.
Yeah, that was important. Yeah. So like for you, like, what was your main like job, like in that whole capacity of everything?
So I was the studio engineer. So
Gotcha.
I was on the studio operations side. It was like I was responsible for the inputs, the input sheet, routing it all into Pro Tools.
Right.
And one thing that was a really important lesson that I learned from that was, we had 64 inputs, and it's like all types of synthesizers, keys, MPCs, percussion rig, piano, like all of the rigs that they were working on, and so it was like accounting for all of that and keeping track of all that was like kind of like the biggest task of mine, along with making sure consistency in like a sonic kind of capacity.
Absolutely.
Dog.
So
I'm sorry, I'm just thinking to myself, like if somebody said, hey, can you mute my synth, you're like, like that organization is another level.
Insane,
like,
Was it well, no, you said you were there from November, so how was that?
So it was initially 2 weeks. So this is another, it goes into my responsibilities, right? So it was only a 2-week session,
right,
but it ended up becoming like 4.5 months.
Shoot.
Oh wow, okay.
Right? So it was like they are adding time.
Right.
We don't have time, finding time, and then it's also like moving rooms too, because it's like we've got this room, but like the time that you're asking for, we don't have that, but we got it in a different room.
Right.
So it was like making sure that we have the session, it's good, it's done, they're leaving, cool, see you guys tomorrow. What time are we in? Cool. As soon as they're out, we're breaking it down and moving it to the other room, making sure all the inputs match.
Right.
It's like keeping track of all that was a
task, man.
Yeah, for sure. But it was my resposibility.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's what you were there for.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
How was that format like, as far as, because I can imagine the amount of times the order changed or songs got added, taken out.
Yeah.
Like, how, from a revision standpoint, over under 100.
We had 180 revisions.
Whoa. Wow. 180 revisions. That's a mix engineer's worst nightmare. Let me tell you something. 180 revisions. I'm like, hey, man, I'm just not the guy.
I don't know how many revisions was on the mixing side.
Oh, got you. On the whole other side.
That was the production and the arrangement of it.
Right. And stuff like that.
Yep.
So let me ask you a question. Obviously, you're capturing all of this stuff. What is your rig like? So So like, what is like? For instance, what's the interfaces? Like, what is that capture like?
The interfaces were Orion Antelope 32. It's
Great.
2 of them, so it's 64 inputs.
Right.
And we were using 64 inputs.
Right.
Nice.
All
So,
64
yeah,
inputs were being utilized
the
at the same
whole,
time.
yeah, the whole thing.
Gosh, that was crazy. And what about preamps and things of that nature?
A lot of it was like the percussion rig was through all of the 1073. We got like a 1073 rack.
Right.
And then we've got some UTA preamps.
Okay.
Some GML preamps.
Nice.
And then I had all of the like rigs and the stuff that was in the room, synthesizers and stuff like that. That was just going straight to the console.
Got you. Like just in the console, and then you was routing that just into Pro Tools.
Yeah,
and stuff
the
like
console is normal to Pro Tools inputs. So whatever
Nice.
the channel was the Pro Tools inputs.
It just automatically.
And so those channels ended up becoming what, like when we're switching rooms,
Right.
It was like those were where those inputs lived, and it's like I knew, like certain banks were like these are the synths, these are the laptops,
right,
NPCs, those types of stuff.
Insane.
Wow. So basically, the board was basically the preamps and stuff in the lines in for the synthesizers and things like that. So you separated it. So you had the hardware rack with the preamps. Those are more like the vocal
Microphones
mics,
and stuff.
stuff. And then this was like the hardware. That was good. That, I can already see like the organization of that. Like the board, I know that's like hardware synths and analog stuff, and then this is more of like microphone stuff.
Shout out to Antelope too, because they don't get brought up a lot.
They
but
do.
I hear amazing things about the which interface was it again?
Orion 32. Yeah.
Shout out Antelope.
And they're one of the few interfaces that like 32 ends, like that's a lot. That's a lot of like like OD. So they're one of those ones that I keep hearing it. I feel like we've been talking to a bunch of people and they've been bringing up that interface a lot lately. Like it's like an unsung interface right now.
So how long, I don't know if this is like pushing it with the question, but how long before we saw the actual Super Bowl was the job done on your part?
Well, yeah, it was October 31st until February 11th or 10th.
Oh my! And then this Super Bowl was like
31st till February 10th,
and then
whatever day the Super Bowl was.
Right.
Oh man! So your job was over.
Even up to that point, it's like I got the files, I got the input sheets, the set lists, like all that type of stuff. It was like, I'm like, kind of,
bro. I can't, bro. I'm mad I never really thought about
what this what goes into
honestly.
that.
Yeah, but when I see it, I'm like, that's like
all those moving parts,
microphones up there, and I'm like, then there's like that sound, then there's the sound from that. Like I've never thought about all of that stuff and how there's people like us behind like the scenes that's making it happen.
And I can imagine like one revision, like you said, 180, but one revision now the dancers got to change. Now the routine got to change. Wow,
it was way more involved too because it wasn't just a music piece. It was a production of like visual, audio,
techniques, all of this stuff,
choreography, the types of stuff that I wasn't even involved with. You know what I mean? It's like
you were just a part of the system.
His creative director would come in and say, "Oh no, we need the hold longer because we need like the light, to come down at this part, and like we need to create time for him to change outfits and get into rollerblades and like all that type of stuff."
Transition between.
It just sounds nuts, right?
Yeah, like when you look at the transition, because I'm like I said, R&B head, so I've watched that halftime show a lot more than I should.
For sure.
So when you look at like the transition between every song, him going from him to Alicia Keys to fucking him leaving, her coming out singing, and then he comes back and rollerblades, Will.I.am on the
I'm like, what is happening? It's confusing for me to watch. So in my head, it's like you'd be like,
it's like
Will.I.am,
whoa,
rollerblades, time. Right. You know what I keep laughing about? I try to think about, for instance, on this podcast, right? Like us, we'll sit here and be like, yo, we nailed this, like 4 microphones, 4 videos, like we're killing it. And then I think about like for you as this, like, part of being a part of the sound team, like the TV side saying like, hey, we need the sound, like now give us like, and in my head I laugh because it's just like for us it's just like one aux, it's like here's your aux to go right to my audio. And on your side, I'm sure it's like a much more difficult process. Like how did you deliver that? Like what was who was next in your chain of your job? Like who was next in your chain?
Good question. So the next guy in line was an engineer in Houston named Bruce Bang.
Gotcha.
So they brought Bruce in, and he was kind of like the pre-mix and sent it off to Manny Marroquin. And then he mixed the show.
Right.
So it was like, kind of like the handoff to him, but also being at you know, once my role was complete, being at like kind of Bruce's like side, you know, and it's like, because I got the input sheets and he's like, bro, where's the synths at? And I'm like, they're right here,
right there, right there. I worked on that. Like, yeah. That's
so,
crazy.
You know, it's like kind of like from, and you know, it's like another thing that was like learning on the fly was like, you know, a typical session is one. You know, a beat at one tempo, typically, one key, typically, and a microphone, like a vocal, you know, and it's like, you know, that structure is very like, you know, minimum, but this production was all these inputs, all these tempo changes, all these key changes, and you know, organizing all that and keeping track of it, it just started to grow and grow, and it's like, you know, but like once you see it from smaller and you grow with it, then it's like you know where
things are and stuff. Like even like I don't even think people realize even the transitions. Like you know these are the hit records that we heard, but even those transitions have to be like blended in, and you know what I mean, and going from song to song, the tempo switches and stuff like that. Like that is
or like you know putting a song in and realizing like maybe this just isn't the one. You know, that
doesn't feel right.
That was a big part of it, and it's like one thing that I really took away that was really like very cool to see was, you know, you mentioned all the legendary, you know, producers that were involved in creating the show, but it's like watching them recook already made songs. But not overcooking. You know what I'm saying?
Tastefully, just like, all right, let's do this here, then, like kind of just building it out, hitting stabs there, and transition. And it was kind of like some songs weren't, you know, done fully. It was just like 1/30 of it. Then, all right, how do we get out of here? How do we transition and transpose? And
like there's a run in it from.
But they walked out.
It was like from Alicia. They did My Boo. It turned goes to Confessions, I think, and then. 7 o'clock on the dot. I'm in my drop top.
Tick, tick.
I think that you should. Let it burn into You Got It Bad. Her comes out and then Bad Girl. I'm like, what?
Bro, y'all smacked that, bro.
Congratulations.
I was in there screaming, dog. Like just because from you know for me like that is my core like years of like I was young, but I was old enough to like experience it and live it.
And it's one of those things. Like super kudos to Usher. Like the amount of he works so fucking hard because, like you said, residency is going on at the same time, and then the album comes out the weekend of the Super Bowl, and you co-engineered on Naked. Am I right?
Yes.
Nice. Congratulations too, because I'm R&B album of the year.
Nominated.
So congratulations on that. But I do want to. Was that before Super Bowl prep started?
During. Smack in the middle.
That was in between, while it was going on. He was doing that album.
That song, we were with the producers of the show. Usher wasn't at the sessions every single day. The producers were though.
Got you.
He comes in, and you know we would have when he was there, he was there. You know, and it was like. Man, we're leaving at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. And it's crazy because this dude is preparing for the Super Bowl, performing his residency, dropping an album. Like, and preparing for the Super Bowl is not just like
rehearsal. Like, okay, cool.
No, he's skating, he's vocal. You know,
he's doing his own backgrounds over
Well, he's doing vocal coaching. He's doing dancing. He's doing skating. You know, it's like he's all in. He's all involved. I've never seen someone so locked in.
So I'm thinking 4 a.m. sessions ends, maybe a nap because he got choreo in the morning rehearsal, and then don't forget we got to get dressed for the residency tonight. And once we're done, we're back in the studio.
To record the album.
And think about it, like I hate to bring Asian to it, but he's 40 something.
That's a fact.
Like he's that guy.
He's doing it. Machine. You can tell it's like muscle memory for him too as well, man, because he's just been doing it since he was a kid, you know, and stuff like that.
I like a lot of Super Bowls people lip sync. And that was all like watching it. I'm like, he's doing Let It Burn live. He's doing wow.
You know why I knew that show was gonna go off too. I was like, he has been practicing, and that machine is so oiled. Like his whole show for I think he was like a year into the residency, probably 2 or 3. He was deep into the residency.
Before Super Bowl, he hit 100 shows.
That's great.
Wow. So think about it. From pandemic to they did a My Way 20 year or 25-year anniversary, like
Right.
all those different shows, bro.
I'm
So it
50,
was
I'm 100 shows in. I'm gonna smoke. Like, you know what I mean? I'm just gonna be on
I'm
point
gonna
and
smoke the
smoking and stuff like
biggest
that.
show that I have in Vegas.
Right.
And
And that is it.
And I think about that, and then fucking a few months later, all right, tour.
Right, tour.
For 7, 8, 9 months.
Months?
I
Like,
can't
come on,
imagine. So obviously, my big question is like, how did you land just in that kind of like circle in that purview of just like a legend like Usher? Like, how did you like get into like just around that like in that way?
I mean, it's just like, again, shout out to Zoe Thrall, my manager, man. Like,
Say less.
It's just like from working with her, you know, she'll give you a test. You just got to pass the test.
Wow.
You know, and then she'll give you a bigger test, and you got to pass that test, and you just keep passing tests. You know,
until obviously you get to that spot and they're just like, hey, I trust you to do so.
Right. But you got to recognize the test for what it is. And like, you know, it's like everything's a test.
Right.
You know, so it's like
every day.
Yeah.
Right. And if you off your game even at one time, boy, like that could set you back. You know.
I mean, it's like it'll set you back, but it's like, you know, at a certain point, it's like she's very understanding.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like sometimes it's like once you've built that repertoire with her, it's like, okay, if you know, maybe you have a bad day, but it's like that's uncharacteristic, and the greater, you know,
scheme.
Right. It's definitely like, you know, never trying to not, you know.
Right. Yeah, you like, yo, bro, I'm just trying to be as good as I possibly can. And that's it. Like, for sure.
100%.
I understand that. Wow, that's crazy.
Bro, is there anything else, I guess, any other crazy moments from just your tracking there? Because like I said, there's not that many huge spots in Vegas, so I'm sure you see a bunch of cool shit. Maybe you can't talk about it, but I don't know. Any dope other stories that you like to get off?
Man,
I ain't gonna lie, that distressor thing is gonna sit with me. I kid you not.
can imagine.
Because I remember we talked about it and I kept talking about it the whole week.
Now he's a fan
and
of
then
it.
you sent me, I think UAD was having some crazy fucking
oh yeah, it was
sale.
like free or something. It was like $30.
Yeah, $30 for the distressor. So I put that in my chain that week. Yeah, made it. So I didn't need my UAD.
Oh yeah.
So that's
They
just
just threw it
in my
into the
chain.
Spark bundle.
Man,
Yeah.
I think, bro, thank you. Like,
Absolutely.
thank you for sliding through. Thank you for sharing that story. Sure. I feel like not a lot of people, especially engineers, will ever think about like what goes into doing something at the most massive
level.
show of the year in the world.
The most
and
televised.
To hear your journey like of this engineering thing that started like not even 10 years ago, bro.
Right.
That's super inspiring. So thank you so much. Let's clap it up.
Appreciate
my
y'all.
For sure, man.
Hey.
Clap it up. For real. Because I think it's very few engineers that ever think like, hey, I'm
I could do
engineering
this
the
one day.
Super Bowl.
The Super
You know,
Bowl.
like
Yeah.
that's a wild, like, you know, it's like, you know how those things that you just like, how did that, like, things drop on your lap and you're just like, I never expected or to be here and stuff, but it was a really cool experience. And boy, if there's one person that I know now that can handle inputs,
Oh yeah.
it's like, how many inputs? I remember back in the Super Bowl, I did about 64 in,
Right?
64 out. Like, just one of those stories, man. So,
Yeah.
you know, kudos to you, and we're really excited about following your journey and stuff like that.
appreciate
And just
that.
going, is there any way, is like your at or just Instagram, like how can people find you and stuff like that?
At 96Nick on Instagram. That's pretty much.
Say less. And I want to shout out your boy. It's
Mike G Beats.
Mikey Beats. I want to say this to you, my friend. I want to say this to him because I was on. Obviously, is it okay to let you know who you? Okay, engineers for La Russell. Obviously, we're huge fans of La Russell. We love La Russell. What up, my boy? And I was on La Russell's live one time, and I remember it was like a split screen, and I was like, cool. And he had an angle for his engineer.
Yeah, which is
and I was
cool as
watching
fuck.
the engineer locked in, and he was just sitting there, and I was like, yo, bro, y'all don't even understand because La Russell was running everywhere, and it was
having the
sounding
funnest
great.
session ever. He's just like, locked
Right.
on.
La Russell was rapping, and everybody was like, La Russell, but I was like looking at his screen. What is he?
Waves.
I was
I
like, what is home doing? So I want to say kudos to you, man, you for handling that.
Real talk, real talk.
Yeah, shout out to you
That
for
was a
sure.
dope, pleasant surprise.
Yeah,
man.
that was a pleasant surprise to have you here.
Yeah, man, hit my dog Nick up if you in the Vegas area.
Facts.
You need a
Absolutely.
reliable tracking engineer, reliable engineer in general, but I'm putting a stamp on it because
fact.
I've had an amazing experience in the studio, and that's something I really, really hold dear because I'm not gonna lie, sometimes the studio experience don't be the most pleasant.
So I want to say I was not familiar with your game, dog. Like, bro, you walked in and I was like, that dude looks like the podcast guy. And then we're doing our session, whatever, it's all good. And then it goes time to airdrop you the beats. And I'm like, that is the podcast guy.
I'm so dead.
Oh, man.
Yeah, man, listen, in that session, obviously he's working with, you was working with them and stuff. Was that the time with your birthday and stuff?
Yeah,
Around that time when Usher came out with your birthday.
Oh my God, that's a
Crazy. Yeah. All good. Never mind.
Yep.
But you know what's so funny? He was working with Usher and stuff like that, and the one thing he kept bringing up was like, "Yo, that engineer." Like that was like the big takeaway, like from us. So like, just really kudos to you, and that's why I really, we've been wanting you on the pod and stuff like that and everything. But appreciate you, and I'll take us on out.
Yes, sir.
Please make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Remember, one lucky person in the comment section is going to get that VIP Gold Edition Rosetta EQ or compressor. Just leave your @name from Instagram so that we can let you know you won. Also, our members been seeing this video, so you become a paid member of the channel as well, so that you can get early access to videos, exclusive content, etc. And that is why I was the intro guy for a long time. I'll take us out.
I'm not gonna lie to y'all. The tip of the day is maybe we need to investigate Antelope Audio because they might be doper than we think. All right,
Might be onto something.